What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Great League Remix Cup running a unique double electric team with Shadow Electivire and Vikavolt. Now with bans to Lantern and Charjabug, probably the only two electric types you're likely to see in the Open Great League, there are quite a lot of teams in this meta that just don't respect the electric typing, which has been highlighted by other content creators recently, showcasing double or even triple electric teams. Now Vikavolt gained access to Fly I believe last season, but I'm sure most of you have already forgotten about that since its pre-evolution Charjabug completely overshadows it, but having Fly is actually very helpful as it means it's no longer walled by Gligar and can pretty much one-shot fighting types like Annihilate. Now running Waterfall on Primarina in the lead for ground types in general, and I suppose dragon types as well, but more specifically for Steelix, because obviously my backline gets completely destroyed by it, but in the end I think I only saw one Steelix, which was at least aligned to my Primarina, but yeah, I definitely could have picked a slightly better generalist in the lead. If you do have access to a Great League Tapu Fini, that would be a much better option, but unfortunately I don't, I only have this really awful IV Primarina, but in the end it worked out fairly well. So with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. What do you think is the most underrated type in the Great League Remix Cup? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so heading into the first battle, Primarina into Shadow Magnezone. So obviously not a great lead, gonna say swap into my Shadow Electivire, and I can actually outpace them even behind one turn to that Wild Charge, so I'm gonna throw it straight away. Wild Charge grabs a shield, and we drop our defense drastically, so I'm actually gonna shield this. The opponent also full sends a Wild Charge, and we will now be able to still outpace them to the next charge move. Once again, full sending a Wild Charge, and the opponent is going to double shield. That allows them to get a huge farm down, but what I'm recognizing here is they just double shielded their Shadow Magnezone. They clearly don't have a great response to an electric type in the back, so I'm actually going to fully sacrifice the Primarina here. The opponent is going to bait with a Mirror Shot, which is a huge call for me. Well, I suppose it doesn't really matter, but it does force the opponent to throw more of their energy. Now we're going to come in with the Vikavolt, and the opponent is going to be very slow to swap out. They swap into Annihilate, but it doesn't matter. This is why we are running Fly. Fly is going to hit for super effective damage, taking out the Annihilate, and at this point, all we have to do is safely shield up the charge move, and it will be game over for the opponent, and the opponent does recognize that, so they just concede the match there. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see Primarina into a Frostlass. So this is a pretty decent matchup for us. Of course, we are resisting the Ice type damage. The opponent going to have to full send a Shadow Ball to do any meaningful damage here. So I'm definitely just going to shield, respect the damage, and they do go for the Shadow Ball. We're now going to overfarm throwing just before they make it to the next charge move. Disarming Voice definitely will get the KO from this range. And now we're going to swap. We do have an ABB style team here, so it is pretty useful to swap out, and the opponent comes in with a Ferrothorn. Now this is actually a very good matchup for us. All the charge moves are going to be resisted on our Vikavolt. Yes, it is a very glassy Pokemon. For some reason, they go for Thunder there. That is also resisted, so I don't really know why they did that. But either way, we can now go for an Exeter, and from this range, it would get the KO, so the opponent used their final shield. And at this point, I'm happy to let the Vikavolt go down. Power Whip will be taking us out. We can now come in with the Shadow Electivire. I'm going to go for 6 Thunder Shocks here, and then throw on the CMP type, but unfortunately, we lag by one turn, and I realize it's very obvious they're going to try and go for a combo play, so we swap, we catch the charge move coming from the Frostlass. The opponent full sends a Shadow Ball, taking out the Primarina, and now we can just go for a full Thunder Shock farm down with the Shadow Electivire, and we see we are taunting the opponent right now. The opponent going to come in with a Mandibuzz. We can full send the Wild Charge right off the bat. Wild Charge actually doesn't quite take them out there. Mandibuzz so thick, but it doesn't matter. We get the Thunder Shock farm down, and just for the sake of it, we're going to fire off yet another Wild Charge, taking out the Ferrothorn, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see Primarina into a Shadow Swampert. So definitely where we want to see it with this team. The opponent is going to choose to stay in, at least initially, eventually swapping into Tentacruel. Now this is the disadvantage of running two very classy electric type Pokemon. We're actually going to lose switch advantage up against a Pokemon that is weak to the electric typing, and it's not even going to be that close either, as I couldn't really afford to shield a Poison Fang, or sorry, an Acid Spray there, but they do get a full Poison Jab farm down, so not great. They're probably also just going to Poison Fang my Electivire as I come in, and once again I am not going to shield this because of course Acid Spray does very little damage, but we're not going to be able to go for a Thunder Shock farm down, which is very embarrassing. So we're going to go for a Wild Charge here, sorry, Ice Punch there, and we do take them out. They come in with a Frostlass, we're going to come in with the Primarina, and honestly I probably should have just continued to overfarm here, but either way we go for a Disarming Voice. That doesn't get a shield, and the opponent does live it. They can now throw a charge move, going for the Shadow Ball. They come back in with the Shadow Swampert, and I believe they're at back-to-back back-to-back charge moves. I'm going to shield this. I assume we do win CMP, especially with these very poor IVs. We're going for the disarming voice, and it does look to be a CMP die. We grab the final shield from the opponent, and Electivire does have a little bit of residual energy here, but I think we're just slightly too low. We're going to come in with the Electivire. We do make it to an Ice Punch, but how much health does the Frostlass have in the back? Unfortunately, just slightly too much there. They can go for the Powder Snow farm down, and we do unfortunately lose that game. But GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see a Gligar in the lead, so the opponent probably going to swap out eventually, and they swap into a Mantine, so always respond with my Vikavolt here, just because I can shield ones and then fully farm them down, whereas Shadow Electivire, whilst yes, we have a double super effective fast move in Thunder Shock, there's not a lot of fast move pressure there, so I do prefer just to go for a full farm down, and like here, we have already mentioned, we're not completely walled by the Gligar, as we can go for Fly, and you can see when this does connect, it's going to do big damage to the Gligar, and the opponent is going to be forced to throw their charge move. So at this point, Aerial will be taking us out, but that's absolutely okay. Gonna come in with Primarina, and unfortunately Waterfall just doesn't quite get the KO there. I'm not gonna shield, it's a little bit risky here, and the opponent comes in with a Carbink. Now I need to grab a shield here. This disarming voice, not gonna do too much damage, and we do grab that final shield. So now this is game over. Shadow Electivire can definitely two-shot anything in the meta right now. Definitely a Carbink, despite being very bulky. Gonna farm to the back-to-back wild charges. I do pause for one turn there, just to make sure the Rock Throw registers. We go for the first one, dealing well over 50% of their health. A second wild charge, 100% is going to KO there, and then we can just Thunder Shock, farm down the Gligar, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see a Giraffe Rig in the lead. So this is fine, especially since they are running Double Kick as the fast move. We are resisting here. They're going to go straight for a Psychic Fangs. I'm going to no-shield the first move here, and then I will just throw that Disarming Voice straight away. We get there just before they make it to Psychic Fangs number 2. Disarming Voice is going to be no-shielded. I'm going to swap instantly into my Shadow Electivire, and the opponent responds with a Carbink. And this is actually very good for me because, of course, Vikavolt does not want to see that Carbink at all, especially when I'm running X-Scissor and Fly. The charge moves are completely walled, but either way, we can go for back-to-back wild charges, grabbing a shield with the second wild charge, and I'm hoping we can come in and farm them down with Primarina because, of course, Vikavolt, whilst yes, it's only going to take neutral damage from those charms from the Alolan Ninetales, it is a very classy Pokemon, so hoping to get the farm down, but I'm barely not able to do so. We come in with the Vikavolt, we do get one Volt Switch off, and hopefully that will allow us to make it to back-to-back charge moves, but it's looking pretty unlikely. We go for the X-Scissor, grabbing that final shield, and we do get the new mechanic, but unfortunately X-Scissor is resisted damage, it won't get the KO there, and unfortunately we do end up losing that game. But GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see Primarina into Quagsire. Now, once again, where we want to see it with this team, although this still isn't that great of a matchup here. If we're running Tapu Fini, I think it would be a lot more even, but unfortunately, with Waterfall, it just takes a very long time to get to the charge moves. Obviously, if we're running Charm, then it would take even longer, but Charm does at least do a lot more damage, but I just don't really enjoy using Charms, so that's why we're running Waterfall. But anyways, just going to no-shield at this point. They go for another Mud Bomb. We are going to come in with the Vikavolt, and the opponent's going to throw straight away, so I'm definitely just going to shield this up. The opponent does bait with a Mud Bomb, but that's fine. I can now overfarm by one more Volt Switch, go for the X-Scissor, hoping the opponent is just going to let this go through, and X-Scissor does get the KO. They're now going to come in with a Sableye, so I'm going to throw on the CMP tie here. The opponent throwing straight away as well, so that's fine with me. X-Scissor will be going shielded by the opponent, so at this point I'm just going to rely on my Shadow Electivire. They go for the foul play, that easily gets the KO. We get a bit of lag as we come in there, so unfortunately I'm not able to get for wild charge before the opponent throws their charge move. So at this point I'm just going to overfarm here, and the opponent has a Mantine in the back, so this is certainly game over. I think they tried to catch the wild charge straight away, but wild charge easily one-shots them. We can go for the second wild charge, and from this range this is certainly enough to take out the Sableye, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into the next game, we see Primarina into Shadow Alolan Ninetales. So I mean, the entire team is pretty glassy here, but we're just going to stay in, and we should be able to go for a Disarming Voice on the CMP tie, but the opponent going to choose to just go for a full Charm farm down, which does make a lot of sense. We grab a shield there, they do get the Charm farm down. I'm hoping that we can take them out before they make it to back-to-back charge moves on the Ninetales. So let's see, they go for a Weather Ball, and we are just barely able to get that farm down, and the opponent's going to come in with a Gligar. So like I've mentioned already, Fly is going to hit for neutral damage. Of course, my Electivire would be much better in this matchup, since Ice Punch is going to hit for double super effective damage, but that's okay. I'm going to no shield here. They go for an Aerial Ace. We're going to come in with the Shadow Electivire. I feel like there could be something like a Mantine in the back. So here, this is really dumb. I don't know why. I no shield and they go for the dig. And we just go down. I don't know what I was thinking there. I just kind of zoned out for like a few seconds. I was doing these battles like just after midnight, so I'm going to just put it on me being tired, but definitely a very poor play there. But GG's to that opponent there. If they are watching, let me know what their final Pokemon was and if I had a chance of beating it. But anyways, into the next battle, we saw a Alolan Raichu and they've swapped into a Dunsparce. We go straight for the Wild Charge there. I'm now going to throw on the CMP tire, and I realise if I just double shield here, if the opponent obviously shields this move, I can probably Thunder Shock farm them down. So I'm definitely going to try and do that here, because even if they come back in with the Alolan Raichu, I'm going to have nearly back-to-back Wild Charges loaded to throw straight away. So they come back in with the Raichu. We're going straight for Wild Charge number 2. Wild Charge is going to grab that final shield, but we make it to a third Wild Charge in time. It's resisted damage, but it does huge damage there. And at this point, we're going to come in with the Vikavolt. I am going to, of course, let this move go through. We should resist everything unless they are running Psychic, which typically they're not going to. They're going to swap into Pidgeot, and I realize if I throw there on alignment, that Gust is nearly going to take me out. So instead, what I'm going to do, swap into my Primarina. The opponent full sends a Brave Bird, which is fine with me, because now we can just go for a Fly. They have triple debuff their defense. Fly easily one-shots them, and we can get the Volt Switch farm down. I'm able to take out the Raichu, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into next game, we see Scrafty in the lead. They're probably going to swap straight away, and they swap into Golbat. So once again, like I mentioned before, always swapping into the Vikavolt to respond to a flying type, because we do have that option to just fully fast move farm them down here. We're going to go for a fly here. The opponent has gone for a Poison Fang to debuff my defense, so this actually is going to be a pretty close matchup here, but we should be able to win it in the 2-shield scenario. I'm going to be double debuffed when I come out, and I don't think the Scrafty will come back in, so I've just got to be wary to see what they come in with. They come in with a Unnovan Stunfisk, so definitely just going to go for the X-Scissor. X-Scissor, not going to do too much damage, but a second X-Scissor will definitely get them into the yellow health range, and the opponent's actually going to use their final shield. So at this point, I'm actually going to come in with my Shadow Electivire. A little bit questionable, but of course, Primarina has a very good matchup up against the Scrafty. Here, I'm going to bank an Ice Punch, then swap into Primarina. The opponent goes for a Power Punch, not going to do much damage. Even boosted, I should be able to live a foul play. So what I'm actually going to do here is allow my Primarina to get incredibly low, to the point where the opponent is probably going to be tempted to go for a full fast move farm down. So we go for Disarming Voice, and because they go for the farm down there, we have now certainly put them into range where an Ice Punch will get the KO. So we go for it straight away, winning CMP, taking out the Unnovan Stunfisk, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see Quagsire in the lead once again. So once again, just going to stay in here. Going to possibly shield the first move. It looks like they threw, and unfortunately we didn't get a full waterfall through, which is very awkward. But we are now going to go for the next charge move, throwing on the CMP die. And I assume the opponent probably going to shield this up. So we do grab a shield advantage, but we are going to let the Primarina go down. If they got a Pokemon that is strong up against my electric backline in the back, then there's pretty much nothing we can do, but I'm hoping with a ground type in the lead, they don't have any ground types in the back, and they full send a Stone Edge this time, so I can massively overfarm here, going for the X-Scissor, and X-Scissor will of course take them out, but they've got a Carbink in the back, so I'm going to swap into my Shadow Electivire. The opponent is going to bank some energy, and then come in with a Cresselia. Now this is a matchup where they have very little fast move pressure, so I can actually maintain alignment here, but it doesn't really matter. The Charjabug will eventually, oh sorry, not the Charjabug, the Carbink will eventually just be able to come in and fully farm me down. But either way, we're going to farm up as much energy as possible, throwing at the last possible second. Wild Charge takes out Cresselia. We can go for another Wild Charge. I need this to land. If it doesn't land, it's going to be game over, and the opponent does correctly use their shield. We've only resisted charge moves to throw, so I'm not even going to bother. Rock Slide easily takes out the Vikavolt, and unfortunately, we do lose that game. But GG's to the opponent there. Into next game, we see Salazzle in the lead, so this is a very good matchup for us, and the opponent is going to choose to stay in initially, then swapping into their Mantine. So once again, going to respond with the Vikavolt. I'm just going to use my shield here, play it safe, and the opponent is going to full send a Water Pulse. I don't know how much damage that would actually do, but it probably would take us out, to be honest, at least with the extra wing attacks. As you can see, even an Aerialace nearly gets the KO. And here, because they come in with a Gligar, probably thinking they're going to wall the energy, well, they are not. I have news for you. As we go for a Second Fly. Second Fly should be grabbing a shield from the opponent. And at this point, this is game over. We're going to come in with the Shadow Electivire. I'm able to paste them to the Ice Punch at the same time, winning the CMP tie. And Ice Punch is going to grab that final shield. So at this point, I can just let Electivire go down. The opponent going to go for an unnecessary bait, and then even more unnecessarily swap into their Salazar, maybe expecting me to swap at the exact same time, but it doesn't work out that way for the opponent as we can come in with the Pre-Marina. I'm going to commit to a full Waterfall farm down, and the opponent just concedes the match there. So GG's to the opponent there. Instantly going to see another Alola Ninetales in the lead. Once again, they are running Charm, but this time they are not a Shadow Alola Ninetales. It looks like we have lag just slightly there, but it doesn't really matter as the opponent isn't going to throw a charge move. So we're just going straight for Disarming Voice. But the awkward thing here is they are not in range for me to farm them down with my Vikavolt before the opponent makes it to back-to-back charge moves. So I don't really want to double shield in this matchup. I will probably shield the first move here as the opponent does go for a Weather Ball, but they will be making it to a second Weather Ball just before we get that farm down. Definitely unfortunate. I should be able to live this. Not comfortably though, so I'm going to swap into my Electivire, and the opponent comes in with a Scrafty now. They're just going to go straight for a Power Punch. I kind of have to shield at this point, but I'm going to farm two back-to-back Wild Charges, and once again, I will wait one turn just to make sure I see that counter damage registering before I debuff my defense. Wild Charge, grabs a shield, and the opponent comes in with a Poliwrath. This is actually really good for me as a Wild Charge will get the one-shot, and can we KO this Scrafty with a Fly? It's going to be close. Scrafty is pretty bulky, but Fly just barely doesn't get the KO. They make it to a power-up punch, and unfortunately from this range it takes out our Vikavolt, and unfortunately we do lose that game. But GG's to the opponent there. Internet's going to see Pre-Marina into Annihilate, so this is a good matchup for us. Well, reasonably good here. Of course, Waterfall, not going to be the optimal fast move up against Annihilate, but that's okay. I'm definitely just going to shield, respect the damage. The opponent full sends a Shadow Ball, and then they come in with Mandibuzz, so clearly very weak to the Fairy typing right now. So they've got two Pokemon, very weak to it, and we are just going to stay in here. Obviously, an Aerial Ace, not going to do too much damage here, so Aerial Ace is going to be no shielded. They could probably commit to a full Snarl farm down, but instead they throw on the CMP tie, so that's fine with me. We grab both shields. At this point, I will just come in with my Shadow Electivire. Aerial Ace will be taking us out there. I'm going to farm up a ton of loaded energy here, so I was thinking this is probably just an Aerial Ace, right? And we're going to no shield. It's a Dark Pulse that does big damage, but the opponent swaps into Gligar, hoping to catch a Wild Charge, but they are unsuccessful. Ice Punch does huge damage, but then unfortunately we lag a ton there, and they're able to just fully farm me down. I don't know how much energy they've got, to be honest, but they just go for an Aerial Ace, which is good news for me. If it was a dig, I'd probably just lose that, which is very unfortunate. But now we can go for the Fly once again into the Annihilate, and this will certainly get the KO. They're going to come back in with the Mandibuzz. They might outpace me to the charge move, but it doesn't really matter at this point. I can just shield and then go for the X-Scissor straight away, and this is certainly going to be enough damage from this range to take out the Mandibuzz, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there into possibly the final battle of this video. We lead into a Shadow Empoleon. Gonna say swap into my Shadow Electivire. And I feel like this is quite an obvious bait here, so I'm actually gonna full send the Wild Charge. And Wild Charge, unfortunately, does grab a shield. So I'm definitely also going to respect the damage here. The fact they're staying in makes me think they might be weak to the Electivire in the back, but never mind, they've actually got a Quagsire anyways. But it looks like they threw on CMP there. Wild Charge still does huge damage despite being resisted, and the opponent does waste all of their energy straight away, which is also very good news. So at this point we come in with the Pre-Marina, and they're not even going to try and make it to a Stone Edge, which is also very good news, as an Aquatel doesn't do an awful lot of damage. At this point I'm realising I think this is the team that I think Zionic showcased, which was triple strong up against Carving. It's also triple water, and because we got rid of the Quagsire, unfortunately for the opponent it's going to be game over, as we can just farm two back-to-back Flies. It doesn't really matter if we're running Fly or Discharge, both would be super effective, and both would certainly get the KO from this range. Fly number 2, taking out that Shadow Poliwrath, and we're able to farm down the Empoleon to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. And if you want to take your support even further, you can now become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has already become a channel member. Your support is greatly appreciated, and with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.